Hey guys, Ariel over here with another video related to the creek. I'm talking to you this spring. This is partly a project that we did last fall as well. So the first project we needed to work on along the creek, you can see how high and muddy and brown it is at this time of year, was to fix where the concrete had eroded under an old head gate, which is a name for something that can divert water to flood irrigate a field. So that was the first project that we worked on last fall, and man, it was nice because most of the other things we needed to do were dry and hot, and this was nice and cool because we got to stand in the water. So this funny shaped triangle board with a notch is going to fix a problem here right where the creek comes onto our property. This area does have a lot of flood irrigation, which you might not be familiar with if you're not in the West. But there was a gate there originally where water could be diverted into this ditch, which runs straight down the property line that way and to other fields. Anyway, the concrete on this side has somehow over time eroded and crumbled. And if you look at the creek, you can see how where clay's standing, it's almost dry and it's all eating under this side. And to prevent that from eating further under this side, we're trying to remedy this by straightening it out. And that triangle board is going to help with that. So that's our project right at this moment. So since lifting up that embedded concrete block that had been originally poured in place and somehow slipped sideways over time on the one end was not really a very feasible option, Clay used some special screws made for setting into concrete and bolted a chunk of angle iron in here that we could then attach the board to and level it back out so that it wasn't flowing sideways and further eroding that concrete. You can kind of see how originally all the water was pushing under that one side and it's actually undercutting that bank. And if that all collapses, it could cut a whole new channel out into the rest of the property, which is not what we want. Next, you had to do a little custom fitting to make that board precisely fit into the spot it needed to go, because this was, not an even level or flat or smooth location. So did a little custom chainsawing, wood carving to make it exactly fit, and that involved pulling it in and out a few times to get it seated just perfectly into its little custom spot. Something caught somewhere.
Must be something in there because
it was not. Oh, a chunk of rock fell in. That.
Oh, okay.
That was it. I knew it was lower than that before.
Yeah. Still got that?
Yep. That's all that I can hang on to. That's looking better. And you can see we finally got it to be pretty level, whereas the water backed up behind it there for a second before flowing over. It went evenly over top of the whole board instead of flowing sideways still. Now as you can see, there's still water coming out in the crack underneath it as well, and that we did fix in a minute. That issue was remedied by cleaning up a little bit where the bank had kind of collapsed from that erosion and cutting out some of the chunks of sod and roots there and using them to pack, kind of like a beaver does, along the bottom of that board and seal it up. And this ended up working out really well. We couldn't really tell till high water showed up this spring how well that would function, but it's been working perfectly and the water is sheeting over the whole setup and it, not being obstructed, just leveled out so that it's no longer eroding under the one bank and trying to cut a new and different channel. So that worked perfect. So you can see the creek coming down through here behind me. Hopefully you can hear me over it. It's kind of high and muddy right now. This is pretty close to peak spring melt runoff. Here in the mountains, the spring melt is about highest at this time of year. And so this is the most water that comes through the creek for the year. And that's why it's also brown. All the creeks and streams and rivers and everything runs brown at this time of year from the sheer volume of water stirring up stuff. But anyway, here's how a bunch of people had questions when they saw the fence video about, oh, things are going to walk right under it, right at the creek. Well, what I didn't have in there was how Clay finished that up and made it work so that doesn't happen. So here's the little flapper valve system that he built to make that work. Not really a flapper valve, but a flapper fence system. You can see this piece hangs down and flips freely. It can swing back and forth, so if anything, any chunks of a stick or something comes down, they can swing it out, push it out of the way and keep going. And if the water gets really high, we can flip it the whole way up and actually hook it to the fence and keep it completely out of the way. But then it is also, sure, an animal could push in on it and get in. The dogs, like our dogs, could not get out because they'd have to push out the other way. But most critters don't try that hard to push on a little spot in a creek like that in a fence. So far, it's been working really great. So there's an idea, if you need an idea of how to make a fence of this variety cross a creek, how we did a setup to make that work and still be closed and not plug up the creek. So that was two little creek details, how we got the erosion problem fixed, and as you could see there, we stacked a bunch of rocks in around the eroded edge, and they've been holding up perfectly so far through the high water time of spring here. And then how we also made the gate cross the creek, and I only filmed the one edge, but obviously we've got the fence, not the gate, but how it crosses the creek, and there's obviously a second creek crossing further down, but it has the exact same kind of setup with the same flapper that can hang closed at low water, get pushed out of the way if any debris comes floating down, or be hooked up completely if necessary. So that's our little creek projects, and I like just sitting beside the creek and watching it flow. Over here at Nyth. Thank you so much for watching these videos and spending some of your very valuable time choosing to do that. We hope you found something that was useful, educational, helpful, maybe save someone else some time and trouble, or just something just plain beautiful. If you don't want to miss any videos, subscribe and hit the bell. And thanks for coming along on our journey as we build a new little homestead with our tiny house and everything to come.